What's going on, folks? I thought that this was going to be a really fun video idea, and I actually stole it from TSO Sage. If you don't know who he is, go check him out. He's funny as shit. But we're going to be discussing One Piece hot takes, and the hot take for this video is Marco stronger than Zoro? Now, I am not caught up with One Piece completely, but I don't mind seeing spoilers from this. Don't spoil me down in the comments, though, because I'm sure ChatGPT won't spoil too much without saying what they need to say as far as when it comes to who has better feats in terms of like hockey, or how would their devil fruit, well, not their devil fruits because Zoro doesn't have one, but how would Marco's devil fruit match up against Zoro? So let's get this started. Hey chat, many fans of One Piece would argue, why do I keep putting a comma, that Zoro is a stronger character than Marco the Phoenix. What are your thoughts on that? Oh, okay. The debate over whether Roronoa Zoro from One Piece is stronger than Marco the Phoenix is an interesting one, and it ultimately depends on how we measure strength and the context in which they face off. Both characters are incredibly powerful, but they have different abilities and fighting styles, which makes this a bit subjective. True. Strengths of Zoro: swordsmanship. Yeah, of course, I don't need to go over that. Marco doesn't wield a sword. Physical endurance. Zoro has shown an insane ability to take damage and keep fighting. His fight with Dracula Mihawk and the subsequent injury he took while protecting Luffy show that he's willing to endure tremendous amounts of pain to keep fighting. That's true. Zoro's durability is actually off the charts. Oops. I would compare his durability to someone like Vegeta's, because think about back during Arlong Park. He was fighting against the Arlong Park pirates after having taken that massive injury from Mihawk's sword. Or what about the nothing happened moment? Forget all the damage he took, he also took on all of the damage that Luffy took afterwards. Yeah, Zoro's durability is crazy. Post-time skip growth. After the 2-year time skip, Zoro's strength increased significantly, and he has fought powerful enemies such as Pika, Kaido's commanders, and even King, one of the top lieutenants of the Beast Pirates. Zoro's strength has also been boosted by his training with Dracula Mihawk, the world's greatest swordsman. The world's greatest swordsman. Hold on. Another video idea? Mihawk versus Shanks? That's for another time. Cutting power. Zoro's swordsmanship allows him to cut through practically anything, including mountains, massive ships, and even biological creatures. His Hakoku techniques, use of haki in combination with his swordsmanship, have been shown to be incredibly devastating. Strengths of Marco, the Phoenix fruit. You know what this does? It allows him to regenerate from injuries quickly by turning into blue flames. He's incredibly difficult to defeat, as he can recover from nearly any wound, and his flames also have offensive capabilities. Experience and battle IQ. That goes without saying. He was one of Whitebeard's right-hand men. Long before Zoro even became a pirate, he was probably out in the fields before Zoro was even born. Advanced haki. Okay. Marco can use Bushoshu, armament haki, and Ken Bushoku, observation haki. His observation haki is incredibly advanced and shown in his ability to sense enemies from long distances and his skills in dodging attacks. His flame control. He can heal with it. He can use them offensively in combat. His Phoenix flames can be used to burn and damage opponents, and flames make him incredibly difficult to hurt. And of course, flight, something Zoro cannot do. That gives him a mobility. Well, chat just said it too. Giving him a mobility advantage in battle. This makes him hard to hit and gives him the ability to maneuver around opponents quickly. Comparison and conclusion. Durability. Yeah, this would have to go to Marco. He has advanced armament haki, and he has regenerative abilities thanks to his devil fruit. While Zoro to kill, it makes him incredibly hard to kill. Zoro, while tough, can be injured or exhausted after long, grueling battles, as we've seen with his fight against Kaido's forces. Marco's regeneration means he can recover from almost any wound. Offensive power. Are giving this one to Zoro. His immense physical strength, cutting power, in combination with his haki. He is a powerhouse with devastating attacks capable of cutting through nearly anything. However, Marco can match this with his flames and advanced haki. Interesting. While Zoro's attacks are lethal, Marco's flight and regeneration give him a unique defensive advantage. I don't know, y'all. Zoro's looking kind of cooked. Tactical ability too. Marco's experience in high-level warfare, having been part of the feared pirates, and the Marineford War gives him a significant tactical advantage, Zoro is a more straightforward fighter. That's true, but his growth as a strategist have improved as well, especially with the lessons he learned from Luffy and Mihawk. In a head-to-head battle, Marco's regeneration and flight give him the edge in terms of survivability and overall versatility. However, Zoro's sheer offensive strength and his Haki mastery could pose a serious threat to Marco, especially in a prolonged fight. If Zoro can land a decisive blow, he could potentially win, but Marco's ability to keep recovering and his unpredictable flight make him a challenging opponent. His final thoughts. While Zoro's raw power, determination, and swordsmanship are incredible, Marco's regeneration, flight, and experience could make him a more difficult opponent to defeat in a prolonged battle. However, depending on the circumstances of the fight, e.g. environment, strategy, and whether Zoro can overcome Marco's regeneration, either character could come out on top. Oh, I see you're being coy about it. Alright, chat. Understandable. But for the setting and stakes of the battle, let's say that Zoro and Marco had a fight to the death in a barren wasteland with nothing to get in the way of their battle. Who would be the victor? Man, I don't need to log in. Given a fight to the death between Roronoa Zoro and Marco the Phoenix in the barren wasteland with no external factors influencing the battle, we can break down the advantages of each fighter and consider how they would fare in each environment. Key factors: no environmental distractions, so there's going to be no terrain advantages, no cliffs, blah blah blah. To the death, both characters are fighting for their lives, so we're considering their full combat potential with no holds barred. That's what I want to see. That's what I want to see. Overwhelming offensive power is one of Zoro's advantages. Raw strength and swordsmanship and primary assets. He can strike hard in his trademark. Haki boosting his attacks. He can bypass Marco's regeneration for a short period, especially if he lands a powerful blow. Yes, yeah. He can defeat opponents much larger than himself, like when he destroyed Pika. His strength is tremendous, and in the context of a fight to a death, he would throw everything into landing a decisive blow. Asura, his multi-sword technique, one of his most powerful weapons in the fight. It's a technique that unleashes a massive amount of force and can overwhelm Marco's defenses. Haki, mastery of armament Haki, would allow him to penetrate Marco's defenses, potentially negating some of the effectiveness of his flame. His observation Haki has also been improving, allowing him to read his opponent's movements in depth, and an advanced Haki would be key in overcoming Marco's regeneration. By using Haki to strike with intent and precision, Zoro can force Marco into a situation where regeneration might not be as effective or fast enough to recover from the damage. His endurance and willpower, we talked about that earlier. That's going to be self-explanatory. Marco's advantages, of course, he has his regeneration. Marco's regeneration, arguably his greatest strength. The Tori Tori no Mi model Phoenix allows him to heal wounds almost instantly, making him incredibly difficult to kill. As long as his head is intact and he can keep regenerating. Zoro's attacks would mostly be in vain unless he can land a decisive blow that prevents Marco from regenerating. Zoro is powerful, but Marco's immortality, at least in the context of regeneration, would make it difficult for him to finish Marco off permanently. Zoro's stamina might be his biggest hurdle, as even if he damages Marco, Marco can keep coming back, forcing Zoro to expend more and more energy. His flight and mobility, self-explanatory, he's a phoenix, he can fly around. That gives him a significant advantage against Zoro, especially in a barren wasteland, so he would have to jump around, and he doesn't really have that type of air mobility. I guess unless he wants to use one of Sanji's techniques and like airwalk. He has advanced Haki and more battle experience than Zoro, as stated earlier. Battle outcome. Okay. Early fight. At the start of the fight, both fighters would likely test each other's strength. Zoro would attempt to land a heavy blow using his speed and precision with swords, while Marco would use his flight and regeneration to avoid and heal from Zoro's strikes. Marco would be on the defensive, using his flames to keep Zoro at bay while trying to land his own attacks. However, Zoro's offensive power is immense and he might land a few strong hits, forcing Marco to regenerate. The middle of the fight. The battle would become a battle of attrition, with Zoro needing to land an attack that incapacitates Marco long enough to prevent him from regenerating. Marco's regenerative abilities would allow him to survive most of Zoro's attacks, but the longer the fight drags on, the more likely Marco is to tire out from constant regeneration. Zoro would have to push through Marco's flying attacks, keeping up the pressure and avoiding being hit by Marco's flames. Marco's flight and fire would be a constant annoyance, and while Zoro can likely withstand some burns and injuries, it's clear that Marco has the advantage in terms of sustainability. The climactic moment. At some point, Zoro would need to adapt and overcome Marco's regeneration. His Asura technique would potentially give him the power needed to overwhelm Marco's defenses, but it would take extreme precision. Marco's flying ability would allow him to stay mobile, but if Zoro can predict Marco's movement with his observation haki and land a powerful strike, he might be able to deliver a blow that either incapacitates Marco long enough for him to stop regenerating, or strike him in a critical location. Verdict. While Marco's regeneration and flight give him significant advantage in a drawn-out battle, Zoro's unmatched offensive power, haki, and willpower would ultimately give him the edge. The key to Zoro's victory would be his ability to land a decisive blow that prevents Marco from regenerating. Zoro would likely win, but it would be an incredibly hard-fought battle. His overwhelming strength and determination would eventually break through Marco's defenses, especially considering that Marco's regeneration might not be able to keep up forever. Zoro's focus, ability to endure pain, and sword techniques would gradually overwhelm Marco, eventually forcing him to land a critical strike that Marco couldn't heal from in time. Final answer, Zoro wins, but it would be a grueling battle that tests both of their limits. Marco's regeneration would make it close, but Zoro's sheer power and will to win would push him to victory in the end. Interesting verdict. Interesting verdict on that end. But wasn't Marco's offensive power capable of holding back Big Mom? Does Zoro show a few? Let me ask chat. But with all of your statements about Zoro's overwhelming offensive power, he still couldn't match Kaido's, who is matched by Big Mom, another Yonko. Marco has shown feats being relative in terms of destructive power to Yonko level fighters such as Big Mom. Would that not mean that Marco has, at the moment, more offensive capability than Zoro? You're absolutely right in pointing out that Marco's feats put him in the realm of Yonko level fighters, and that his destructive power is indeed significant. When comparing him to Zoro, it's crucial to recognize that Marco has just demonstrated destructive power that rivals characters like Big Mom and other Yonko, while Zoro, at least up to the current point in the story, hasn't showcased the same level of overwhelming offensive power. That's what I'm talking about. So, how does Zoro's overwhelming offensive power be the reason that he would overcome Marco? That's my question. Marco's destructive capabilities. Marco's ability to fight Big Mom and other Yonko level fighters is a clear indication that his offensive potential is on par with some of the strongest characters in One Piece. His Phoenix Flames are capable of dealing significant damage, both in their offensive capacity and their healing factor. His flames are no ordinary fire, they are imbued with the power of his mythical Zoan Devil Fruit. In Marineford, Marco demonstrated the ability to fight on equal footing with top enemies like Kizaru, Akainu, and the Admirals, as well as the Yonko. In a lot of that fight, he couldn't use his Devil Fruit powers because he got hit by a Seas Rhythm Stone thing. So I suppose it would be worth noting that for a good portion of the fight afterwards, he was fatigued due to that. His aerial combat alongside his regeneration makes him difficult to overwhelm. His flames aren't just a defensive tool, correct? He can use them in offensive, large-scale battles capable of holding his own against Big Mom's subordinates, suggesting his offensive prowess is considerable. Zoro's offensive power, as demonstrated by his battles with enemies like Pika, King, and his ultimate confrontation with Kaido, has proven he's a top-tier combatant. However, it's important to note that Kaido and Big Mom are incredibly strong, and Zoro, despite his incredible feats, has not yet shown the ability to consistently destroy opponents on the scale of Yonko like Marco has. Maybe, are you saying you've made a mistake? While Zoro having the overwhelming strength, his destructive capabilities seem less refined than those of other Yonko and other high-end characters like Marco. For instance, Zoro was able to land a blow on Kaido, but it was only after a combined effort with Luffy, and even that wasn't enough to deal a decisive permanent blow. That's interesting. I actually didn't know that. I haven't got up to that part yet. I just know because spoilers. The sheer destructive scale of Zoro's power still hasn't fully matched the scale of attack we've seen from characters like Big Mom or Kaido. How this affects the fight. Given this, Marco's offensive power could indeed be greater than Zoro's in a direct comparison of destructive potential. Marco has experience fighting against multiple Yonko-level combatants and has shown the ability to inflict massive damage as well as the versatility to fight both in the air and on the ground. His flames give him an area of effect advantage and he can attack from a distance, which is an advantage that Zoro, a swordsman, doesn't share. Marco's offensive edge. How this outcome changes the outcome of the fight. In the head-to-head fight, Marco's ability to fly and use large-scale flame-based attacks means he could keep Zoro at a distance, where Zoro would struggle to land the kind of devastating hit that would overwhelm Marco's regenerative ability. And his Phoenix Flames allow him to attack with sustained damage, using his flames for both offensive and healing. The flames might not overpower Zoro in terms of continuous damage output, while Zoro's attacks, though strong, don't carry the same sustained power. Zoro's ability to close the gap. Zoro's advantage lies in his speed, haki, and swordsmanship. Oh, his haki superior to Marco's, is that right? While Marco can fly, Zoro has proven that he can match speed against fast opponents. This battle would hinge on whether Zoro can land a decisive blow before Marco regenerates. Zoro's Asura and cutting his power are strong as we've been over that. Conclusion. With all this in mind, Marco's offensive capabilities do indeed appear superior to Zoro in a direct comparison, primarily because Marco's attacks has shown the potential to match or surpass the scale of Yonko level power. His flames, combined with the regeneration and flight, give him an edge in both offense and defense. Zoro, while incredibly strong, may not have yet the destructive firepower needed to overcome Marco's regeneration without being put into a situation where he can land a critical strike. So, if we were to give the fight to the death between Marco and Zoro in this setting, Marco would likely emerge victorious. His sustained offensive pressure via his flames, coupled with his ability to regenerate from even heavy blows, would eventually wear Zoro down. Zoro's offensive power is immense, but Marco's regeneration and versatile offense may simply be too much for him to handle in a prolonged fight without external help. Okay, so now they changed up. This is really interesting to see too, going over the different feats that both characters have and discussing what advantages each character has over the other. He's saying that Zoro can match Marco's speed. I don't know how accurate that is. I still have to catch up on One Piece. But if that is true, and Zoro can land a precise Asura, I can see a way that he does get out of this, but that seems like an incredibly unlikely scenario. So, chat, all that in mind, give me a definitive answer. Zoro over Marco, or Marco over Zoro? Oh, shit. Marco over Zoro. Marco's Phoenix Flames allow him to provide him with near instantaneous healing. Destructive power is superior. He has flight and mobility, something Zoro has mobility, but he can't fly. So that's an advantage, and he has the advantage in terms of experience. While Zoro's offensive strength is formidable, he has not yet shown the same level of destructive power or regenerative countermeasures that Marco brings to the table. Marco's regeneration combined with his flight and sustained flame attacks would likely overwhelm Zoro in a to-the-death battle, especially given Marco's ability to recover from almost any injury and keep fighting. Therefore, Marco would most likely win in this scenario. Well, Zoro is my favorite character, but you know, chat makes an interesting point, and the points that I've heard from my friends that I had brought up before, based on the feats of certain characters like Marco, being able to actually contend with characters like Big Mom, something that Zoro hasn't shown, at least not yet in this point of the series. You make a really compelling argument. I gotta agree. Hey, that's just how the cookie crumbles. My boy Zoro, you're not there yet, but one of these days, I know you're gonna surpass Mihawk. You're gonna be the greatest swordsman in the world. You're still my GOAT. And yeah, Thank you all for coming by to watch this video. I thought this was interesting, and I thought it'd be a fun thing to do. Ignore the blackboard in Texas Southern University. I'm still a college student. But thanks, guys. Bye now.